Welcome back with the couch coverage. Today we got Jarrell, Shane, and me, myself, Zach. We're going to be talking about a little bit of news, and then we're going to be talking about bust players that we are saying that absolutely do not draft in your fantasy football drafts. Daniel Jones has been announced to start over Anthony Richardson for the Colts in week 1 against the Dolphins. Now, I actually looked already at the sporting odds, and the Colts are actually favored to beat the Dolphins. Shane, how do you feel about that?
I'm not worried about it. I think the quarterback situation for the Colts it's been a mess. And when I looked at that schedule and I was like, okay, the Dolphins have to play one of those guys. There's no way we should have lost to the Colts last year. That was really a luck type game. And I didn't really think that Richardson or Daniel Jones, definitely not scared of Daniel Jones. I mean, he needs to show me something out there, and I don't think either one of them's really had that great of a preseason. Yes, I think Daniel Jones is the more veteran. He will be able to compete probably more. And I think that's why they picked him, because they were like, okay, we got to get some wins here. And, Anthony's just been up and down. And, that's not really his fault. He's young, didn't have a lot of college experience. Normally, he would have been the perfect kind of quarterback that you would have done like Jordan Love with the Packers. Let him come under a veteran, get at least a year of experience in the back, and they didn't do that. So I don't know if they hurt him with that. I know he's been trying hard, but honestly, I'm not worried about it. I think the Dolphins have an easy win for that game.
Easy win, huh? Yeah,
My prediction.
I'm not surprised by this, actually. I honestly think that Daniel Jones is the better quarterback. I am all out on Anthony Richardson. I mean, he is a young guy, so we'll let him develop, and I won't say that he is going to be a bust automatically. But I think that Daniel Jones is way better in this receiving work. And I think that for fantasy football, this is a lot better because now all the weapons are going to get touches. I felt last year, receiving wise, that Josh Downs was really the only one relevant. Now I feel like this is going to help Michael Pittman, Josh Downs himself, Tyler Warren. And even with the rushing ability, I think it's going to help Jonathan Taylor because, even if you have him and he's getting 30 carries, great. You might get a lot of points, yards, but he is so inclined to get injured doing that. I think that if your running back is getting 30 carries a game, it's not really the greatest. I think it needs to be lower. 20 carries a game is probably a little bit more doable and less of an injury risk. So I think that Daniel Jones starting is actually a lot better for any fantasy football fans out there.
Yeah, I definitely
Makes
agree
sense.
with you, Zach, on that one. Definitely the more consistent, reliable quarterback. I feel bad for Richardson. I mean, he's an electric quarterback when he's out there, but I mean, look, even that first preseason game, he gets tackled, his finger gets hurt immediately. So it's like he's just injury prone. So I wonder also, it's like, is that finger 100% better? Is that why they're going with Daniel Jones? Are they concerned if they put him out there, he's going to automatically be injured by week 2 and they're going to have to go with Jones anyway. So
Yeah, I
why not
think
just start him?
that play itself shows I think he needs more experience, because the veteran quarterbacks would have seen that blitz. They would have adjusted for it. Even, he was blindsided. He didn't see it coming at all. And of course I know it's on his blind side, but I think that shows to me he just needs more time. He needs to probably might be a good thing for being a backup, give him some more experience without the pressure of starting. And of course, if Daniel Jones struggles, he'll be able to come in later and he'll hopefully be the hero in his mind. Again, I don't know if he can, I don't know if he will, but maybe it's not a bad thing he's being the backup for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially Daniel Jones. That's probably the best spot to be a backup because you're probably going to get your shot.
Yeah, I do think everyone's a little bit more out on Daniel Jones than I would like. I mean, you got to think about it. He's been on the Giants his entire career, besides last year, but he was a backup. He never even saw the field. So he's been playing with the Giants his entire career, and he did have a good season. I mean, in the season that probably got him paid with the Giants, he played in 16 games, only really his full season. He had 3,205 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, which that's low, 5 interceptions, with a 92.5 quarterback rating. 708 rushing yards on 120 carries in 2022. So, I mean, that's not a bad season. I mean, obviously, we'd like to see the touchdowns maybe raise up a little bit. But again, that's just because he's on the Giants. The Giants aren't scoring touchdowns to begin with. So I think that we should all, he's on a good team. He has a good running back. I think we should give him a chance and see what he does. If he plays well, I'm not going to be surprised, if I'm being honest with you.
So does that mean you drafted him?
If he's
uh,
my very last pick, yes. I don't know if I
no,
draft him anywhere else.
no.
I don't know
So
if
you
I
don't
don't know
like
if
him
I'm
that
that
much.
in on him. I will
Yeah,
say I actually had a pretty interesting take. I don't know if you guys want to listen in on this. What do you guys think if maybe Anthony Richardson kind of switched to like the Joker position, kind of like Taysom Hill? You know what I mean? Because I mean he's a big guy and he's pretty athletic and he can run the ball. So why not put him back there and just let him take direct snaps up the middle or who knows, maybe because I mean he's big enough, maybe even tight end if he can catch the ball. I don't know how good his catching ability is, but do you think maybe he should even be interested in just switching positions? I mean, players do it all the
Hell
time.
no.
Lane Johnson,
Hell
best
no.
offensive tackle maybe in the league right now, was a quarterback in high school.
Dude,
So
the man gets hurt playing quarterback. You want to put him in an actual contact position where he's going to be running up the middle or going out on a freaking drag route as a tight end? Dude's going to get lit up and out the first play.
I was
yeah, his
thinking
injury risk
the
is definitely a
same thing.
concern.
He's one of those guys I'd be afraid he'd get hurt playing checkers.
Yeah.
He's just
Okay.
too frail in a lot of ways, to me. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a possibility he may get traded, maybe not, but I think he needs time as a backup, in my opinion.
I mean, if
All
he if
right.
he could stay healthy, yes, I do like that option. If he could stay healthy, I think that would be good for him, and it would give them a extra depth of plays that they could do.
Yeah, because I mean Taysom Hill is great for the Saints when he plays, but I mean he is kind of a little injury prone. I mean he does get injured
Yeah,
quite frankly. So I do kind of
sure.
agree with that statement. I mean if he's going to be fragile enough where if every time he takes a hit he needs to go to the sideline, or he's just running out of breath, then yeah, I don't. It probably wouldn't work. But I don't know. I think he's athletic enough to maybe even at least consider maybe a position change. All right, we will move on from Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. We won't prolong that one too much. The next topic, this isn't really more newsworthy. This is more of an honorable mention to what we're talking later of fantasy players we're not drafting. I almost listed Javonte Williams for the Cowboys, but I just went ahead and just said the Cowboys' entire running back room. Honestly, I'm not in anywhere on that. Javonte Williams it hasn't been announced, but he looks to be the starting running back as he's getting first team reps. He's always the first running back out on the field with the first team. In their last preseason game, they benched all their starters. Javonte Williams also sat with those starters. And with just any of the other, I mean, Jaden Blue doesn't look good. The Cowboys are already having struggles with him. We already know what Miles Sanders could do. To me, I love Miles Sanders because I'm an Eagle, but he's really only been successful when he was behind the Eagles' O line. So I don't think that with this team looking to be a heavy pass team with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb and now Dak back, I don't know if I'm in on any Cowboys running backs. What do you guys think about that?
Shane.
Now, I'd go along with it. I'm not really a huge fan of the Cowboys backfield right now. I think there's a lot of other options. I mean, like any of these players, I mean, if you get them at the right place, the right round, maybe. But I don't really, think it's going to be my suggestion to go after any of those at this point. When we see a little more, commitment, maybe to one of the running backs and some kind of success, yeah, but not now.
Yeah, I think he might be the only way I could see him being a decent pick for me. And who knows, we could be, he could have a great season. We all look pretty dumb over here. But he is a ninth round pick, so he is a late round pick. So if you end up are drafting and you get down to the ninth and you've only drafted a quarterback, I mean one running back, or maybe you decided just to go zero running back and you're now drafting a running back. He might not be a most terrible pick because he does look to be the starting running back for the Cowboys. But again, I really am not reading too much into that. He was on the Denver Broncos with a great O line, with a great offense in general, and he really couldn't produce. So
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not drafting anybody from Dallas other than George Pickens. So the rest of them can just sit there.
I mean that's respectable, to be honest with you. I can't hate that comment.
And
All
the only
right.
reason I said that is because obviously I know everybody's going to hate me in the comments and be like, "Oh, what about CeeDee Lamb?" Or blah blah blah. There's no way I'm getting CeeDee Lamb. Okay, there's no way. So
Yeah, you got
George
to be a
Pickens.
top five pick.
Well,
Exactly. And
yeah,
I'm
I was
number
going to
For
six.
CeeDee Lamb.
I was going to say that. I guess it really depends on where you fall in the draft. That's the thing about fantasy football is it really, really can change a lot depending if you're in a 12-man league. If you're the second pick, if you're the eighth pick, that's a huge difference on strategy. And a lot of us don't get in the top five, so some of these players are never even a choice for us. You know.
Yeah, unless you're a later first round pick and like Lamb falls to you, then obviously but I mean, if you're in a good league, that's not going to happen all the time. CD Lamb is one of the highest targeted players in the league, so I definitely would see him going pretty early, and
Yeah,
he's
I'm a
definitely produced like it.
I'm gonna debo your segment real quick here. Just out of curiosity, question: what do you guys feel is the worst draft position for fantasy? What number?
Right in the middle. Right in the middle. 6 and 7. If you're in a 12-man, 6 and 7.
7. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, it's probably the same thing. Even though, to be honest, I'm not even really that excited from an early pick, 1 and 2. I mean, so often, yes, you can get a good player, but then you have to wait so long, and sometimes these players get hurt and you got so much invested in an early pick. So I'd either say right in the middle or like 1 or 2 sometimes. I'm not really a huge fan of 1 and 2.
Yeah, I know. I've been in both. So, like, number one, yeah, you get that pick, you get who you want, but then you got to wait for it to go all the way this way and then all the way back to you. So you see everybody else you want just gone, gone,
Yeah,
gone,
yeah.
gone, gone, and then you're like, what do I do? But then the same thing like this year, I find myself in number 6, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, well, dang, this is bad too because you get to see everybody good go, then you pick yours, and then same thing. So
You
it's
still have to
hard.
wait quite a while. You're still in the
Yeah,
middle. So, I mean, you're not really going on one side of the board. Where the reason I like it is because when I'm on one side of the board and any advice I'd give, at least no mock is going to be the same as a regular draft. I mean, we're with a bunch of Bucks fans. I mean, look at Bailey last year. He drafted Mike Evans in the first round. Most leagues are not doing that. But he
right.
did it in this league because we got a lot of Bucks people. But my advice is always mock, just that way you can see where players are at least going around. And that way, if I'm like first or second, I know I'm going to be on the left side of the board. If I'm, near the end, if I'm like 10, 11, 12, then I know I'm going to be in the back half of the board. And then it's easier for me to kind of adjust of what players I'm going to get, what players I'm not. And I can also see which players fall. That's kind of how I look at it, where in the middle, it's kind of harder to do that.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes total sense there to look at it from that standpoint. That's good advice.
And it's also depends on how your league does the draft, meaning do they release info early or last minute, the traditional 30 minutes before the draft. You
Yeah.
don't have as much time to think about what you're going to do in those situations. If you get the information 2 weeks ahead, then you can go out and research, look at the players you want, look at their ADP. So you get sort of a general idea where you fall, where these players may go. But when it's a last minute thing, it's sort of hard.
Yeah. Any
Yeah,
commissioner out
I've
there,
got
make sure you
one of
get the
each of
picks early.
those. Yeah, I've got one of each of those commissioners. I've got one that does it like 30 minutes before, hint, hint, and another one that I already know where I'm at.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm actually thinking about doing mine early this year. So, I guess there's good and bad. Sometimes it's good to have that last minute anticipation and everyone has to really go with the flow. I mean, you're at the same, everyone's even when you do that, but I also like being able to research and look, and especially not everyone does it. And if it's in a money league, I like being able to think about it, you know,
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
leagues,
Yeah.
not so
Fun
much.
leagues, fun leagues, I don't think matters as much. But
Yeah.
yeah, if it's not a fun league and it's for money, I would like to know. At least give me like a couple of days. But a week would be very appreciative to know where I'm drafting at. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll move on from that as we got a little sidetracked. The last thing that we're going to go ahead and talk about, and this actually just happened. We just put this up together, so we haven't really done much research on it. But Sky Moore, he just got traded to the 49ers. Sky Moore in a 7th-round pick for the 49ers 6th-round pick. So basically all the 49ers did was downgrading their pick, and then they gained Sky Moore out of it. Sky Moore, in his 2 seasons with the Chiefs, he caught 43 catches on 74 targets, 494 yards, and only 1 touchdown for 2 years. Now, have in mind that they really just traded a bag of chips to get him, so they really traded like nothing. So it's not really necessarily like a super bad pick considering how bad the 49ers are in wide receiver at the moment. Everyone seems to be banged up. But this guy was supposed to replace Tyreek Hill when Tyreek Hill got traded to the Dolphins, and he definitely did not live up to expectations. Do you think maybe a new scenery with the 49ers and Brock Purdy, because, I mean, it's still not a terrible offense, that he can actually produce something and then maybe take advantage of this situation with everyone being injured? Or is this guy just straight up a bust?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we looked at some of the numbers with like even Brock Purdy being similar to Mahomes the last couple of years. I mean, he will spread the ball out. And I think Zach was completely right. I mean, the 49ers right now are so beat up on the offensive receiving core that anybody coming in with some potential, especially when they didn't really spend a lot of money or a lot of investment on it, I mean, this guy has potential. And maybe going to another team with a different quarterback, it's maybe it could be the thing that really gets him going. But yeah, I mean, again, I don't know how much you can look into it because he hasn't done really a lot, but he is young and the team needs him. So I don't think they're not losing on it. If anything, they can release him later if he's not panning out. But yeah, I don't see it being a bad move at all.
Yeah,
I didn't know too much about him when I saw that you had told me. Like I looked him up, and like, the first thing I saw was like injury history. So like I saw that he was on the IR with the Chiefs and everything. So I mean, my main question is, even though they did it for a bag of chips, but why is a banged up injured team going to grab somebody that has the injury history? Like, do you not are you not using enough band aids and wraps over there? Do you want to bring someone else in?
when you put it
Yeah,
like that, yeah, that's a good point. And I do feel like there's still other wide receivers. Like, why are we not, like, what's wrong with Amari Cooper? I know he's washed, but, like, a team like the 49ers, go get him. Go get Amari Cooper. Like, sign him to a 1 year deal. You don't have to give him that much. I guarantee you'd probably take a certain amount of pay lower than what he's, used to. Go get Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
He's not bad for all these banged up wide receiver teams.
yeah, it's hard to tell. Yeah, I guess with him, Sky Moore, he was a second round pick. So the 49ers are probably hoping maybe with the injuries and stuff like that, he wasn't able to show what he had, and maybe he can, pan out being a second round pick. They got him sort of cheap. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right, that is going to be the end of the news that we have. We are going to go ahead and we're going to actually move on to what we got for the segment today. And today we are going to be talking about players that we are automatically not drafting in any football draft. That means we're totally out of them. 0 for 10 would recommend. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start it off. And I'm going to start it off with kind of maybe a controversial one. The maybe quote unquote the GOAT of this era. Do not draft Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes
What?
right now. Yeah, I know. The Chiefs Super Bowl quarterback. Mahomes is a 5th round pick right now, and he is the quarterback 6 off the board. He in the 12-man PPR last year, he was the quarterback 11. So technically, he did still make the top 12 for quarterbacks last season. But I don't know. This one is strictly for me just an ADP thing. I think that's a little too high to take Patrick Mahomes, even though if it's a 5th round, because sometimes around when I'm drafting, that's usually where I'll go for a quarterback. But there's other quarterbacks I feel in the draft that you get. Like I would probably like Bo Nix more, who goes in after him. Baker Mayfield 100% more. He goes in after him. Jared Goff, he goes way after him. And then even, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think I would rather take Kyler Murray at this point just because of the rushing ability, and he still finished ahead of him. Actually, all of those 4 guys finished ahead of him last season, and they're all being drafted behind him, which I think is kind of crazy. If you look at that Chiefs team, they're defensive heavy. You could see it last year where the defense was saving them. And Travis Kelce seeing a decline, and Rashee Rice is probably going to get suspended. Like I'm not too crazy in on Patrick Mahomes. Now I am a little bit of a hypocrite because I do really love Xavier Worthy, and I do think he can have a good season. But I really see that's it for Patrick Mahomes. I don't think outside of that he has the crazy amount of weapons as we think. What do you guys think? Are you guys thinking Patrick Mahomes is going to be a bust player and he's too high on the draft board, or you guys drafted him?
I mean, I probably won't draft him personally, but I do feel like a lot of people are still going to take him early just because probably name recognition. And
Right.
obviously, if he's on his game and Travis Kelce is truly back and in form again this season, not like crappy last season, that he could put up the points this season again. But personally, like I would not draft him, so I'm with you on that aspect. But I don't know if I put Kyle Murray ahead of him.
No,
Yeah,
it's fun.
and
It's funny. A lot of people think
ADP.
Mahomes is going to, come back this year. I'm not totally sure he will, and I don't think I could recommend anybody drafting him like they used to in the first, second round or something like that. I think he would have to at least fall past the 4th round for me to suggest him, and which is, some people are not going to like that, but I don't see you being able to draft him before then. I think there's too many other quarterbacks, too much value, too similar in points. Yes, if he bounces back and gets 50 touchdowns this year, you may think, oh, that was wrong. But I don't know if he's going to be way off some of the other quarterbacks that you can get. And I don't see myself drafting him first or second like people have done in the past.
He just seems very inconsistent. And I mean, just looking at last year, and out of 9 games out of 16, because he sat his last game as they've already clinched the playoffs. 9 games out of the 17, he had under 20 points. And this is in the leagues that I own, where those passing touchdowns are 6 points a game, touchdown. where a lot of leagues they actually do 4. So that means there's probably even more out there where he was under 20 points. So with
Right.
that being said, is I don't know. That's too inconsistent for me. That's basically half the season of your quarterback not getting 20 points. And again, I feel like if I'm going to get that kind of work, like I said, my guy when we were talking about my guy the other day, CJ Stroud. I feel like he's in kind of the same situation. His receiving core is a little banged up, even though they kind of worked on him this offseason. His team is very defensive heavily. But what is the major difference between them? Mahomes is getting drafted in the 5th round. CJ Stroud is getting drafted in the 10th. So, in my opinion, I'd rather just wait for CJ Stroud if I'm going to get a defensive heavy team.
Fair.
That's just
That's
how
fair.
I view it.
No, I mean
Oh,
that's the problem with quarterbacks, unless they're explosive and they're going to have. I mean, sometimes you're looking at the difference of 5 points a game, and looking at the ADP and on there, if you draft them way too high, you could have grabbed a few other players and let that go down and get somebody in the 8th or 10th round that gets 5 points less. I mean, that to me, drafting somebody like in the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round, that's 5 points difference between a quarterback can get later, that's not really smart playing. So yeah, I would say you got to think about where they fall, where they're available, and that's the big thing that you have to look at.
yeah, and that's really again more off of ADP. If he ends up falling, maybe if he gets to like the 6th, 7th round for some reason in some leagues, which I highly doubt he would. But if he does, then I'd be willing maybe to more even take it, just because he is still Patrick Mahomes. He is still on a really good team, and Andy Reid is still his coach. So that's probably the only way I would draft him. But 5th round just feels a little too early for me. I'm too rich for my blood, I would say. But all right, we will move past the Super Bowl quarterback, the GOAT, quote unquote, of this era. Shane, do you want to go ahead and give us your first player?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one I'm going to talk about is Brees Hall. Brees Hall is one of those I'm not suggesting in drafting, not at least where he's falling right now. I mean, his season last year has really made his ADP skyrocket. And people are looking to get him at the 1st or 2nd round, but I just don't think that's a good idea. I mean, when you look at him, he's turning 29 this season. He's one of those aging running, well, not 29, but
I was like, whoa.
he's one of those thinking age, but he is getting a little older. Even though people look at him as being a top 5 running back, I don't really see him being that way when this year it looks like he's going to be sharing with Braylon, what's his name?
Braylon Allen.
Allen. He's just really going to be, sharing those, run by committee. He has a history of issues. I just don't see him going 1st or 2nd round as a good pick. So, like a lot of them, yes, if he drops down and you get him later in the draft, I think that would be a good choice. But I just don't really see him being worth a 1st or 2nd pick.
Yeah,
What do you
and
guys
he
think?
is at the moment it does say the ADP he does have him going as like a late round, 3rd round pick. So even with that being said though, I still feel like maybe that's a little bit too early, especially with his injury concerns. But you're right, yeah, and the Jets are just a bad team. No matter, Justin Fields doesn't look great, so they do look like they're gonna have to rely on their run game. But Braylon Allen didn't look too bad last season, and it looks like he's gonna get some carries. And I think I think that's a huge mark when you line up on the goal line and they were like, "Hey, Brees Hall, come out," and they put Braylon Allen in. That's going to take a lot of fantasy points away from Brees Hall. And if I'm being quite honest with you, I think there's other players around there that I would like. Like right now, his ADP a little ahead of him is Kyron Williams, which I think we can all agree. I think we would rather have Kyron Williams than Brees Hall. And then
Sure.
maybe this one's a little bit more, debatable, but James Cook is going basically right after him. And
Yeah.
I don't know. That feels like the same player to me. They both are, they both have to deal with other running backs on their team. They both have defensive good teams, and I don't know. I just think that Brees Hall is on a crappy offensive team, and I think that the focus is going to be mainly on Braylon Allen to get those goal line touches, which is going to take a lot of points away from him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I,
totally
d-
agree.
I definitely think he's a high risk, low reward type player this year. And especially worries me as the play of Justin Fields lately has not been looking good. The offense looks like they're struggling, they're not clicking. And being part of a committee, I'm not suggesting to anybody that you pick a committee type running back unless it's somebody like Detroit Lions. That's
Right.
different. But most of these, especially with somebody you're not sure is going to put up the numbers, not at least at the ADP they're falling.
Yeah, and even last season he had 5 games that was under 10 points, which is, I mean, it's not too many crazy games, but that's still probably for a running back because you're drafting him right here at like as your running back 2, maybe even your running back 1. You know what I mean? Depending if you took wide receivers in the first 2 rounds. So with that being said, 5 games under 10 points is very underwhelming, and I don't think that's something I want to be in on.
Yeah,
All
definitely.
right.
I'd say with him aging, offense not great. That's going to be minimal points being scored. You do have a new mobile quarterback, so he may take some runs away from him as well, depending. But it's just a bad team overall, so I'd stay away. And I agree.
Yeah, if this is maybe a dynasty, maybe I'd be a little bit more in on him. Like maybe like wait a few games, see if he'll do bad, and if he does, maybe try to get him for cheap because he is still only 24 years old. So it's not like he's that old.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
24 is still pretty young for a running back, and this is his contract year. So if for some reason after this season he doesn't do well, he might not be a Jet no more, and he can go somewhere else. And if he goes to a better situation with a better O line or a better even just offense in general, then he might be more appetizing to want to draft then or to already have on your dynasty squad.
Good
So
point.
redraft probably no. Dynasty, I might be willing to trade for him. All right, we'll go ahead and move on from Shane's first pick. Drell, go ahead and give us your first.
All right. I'm starting with Marvin Harrison Jr. for the Cardinals. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is because number one, he definitely underperformed his rookie season. He averaged, it said, 11.6 fantasy points per game. When you got a number one wide receiver you're going for, you need more points than that. Just plain and simple. ADP is, I think, 41, they said. Personally, I would just completely stay away from him. He's unproven. Kyle Murray, I am not a Kyle Murray fan. Uh, Personally, if you are, that's great. I don't think he can get him the ball when he needs to. Harrison just hasn't proven himself. So coming in off a bad, underperforming year, even though, yes, he looks like he's jacked now, been in the gym, working hard all off season, to me, it's just too risky and stay away.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not. I kind of agree with you. He's kind of the other day we were talking about how I think that AJ Brown is a good football wide receiver, but I don't think he's a good fantasy wide receiver. And I think this is the same thing here. I think we kind of overhyped Marvin for his first year. Like he's still a rookie. Like I still think 62 catches out of 116 targets, which is a major major bluff there. 885 yards and 8 touchdowns. So basically 62 catches, 885 yards, 8 touchdowns for a rookie season. That's actually not bad. It's just when you look at it as a fantasy standpoint, and when he was going in the first, second round last year, then it looks a lot worse than what it really is. I think we do need to let him develop, but the thing that really the 2 things that really hurt me the most is one that he had 116 targets with 62 catches. That's almost like a 50%. He almost got to like 50% of where he caught his caught his
Right.
passes, which I'm not really too in on that. But Kyler Murray is his quarterback, and I know I was just gloating about him a few seconds ago, but that's fantasy football. I'm talking about Marvin Harrison now. Kyler Murray is a shorter quarterback, and that's just known. And there's nothing against him. He's a good. He could run around the pocket and everything like that. But he tends to not be able to pass it over the middle as well as other quarterbacks do because of his height. So with that being said, he's not going to be able to really connect with Marvin Harrison so much, who does great in the middle of the field. So with that being said, I think because Kyler Murray is his quarterback, until they bring in maybe someone that can fit more Marvin Harrison, I'm kind of out on him in fantasy, especially if we have to draft him end of third or early fourth round.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of those guys that had a lot of hype about it. Like you said, he got picked very high last year, and for where he got picked for a lot of drafts, he didn't really, perform up to that level. But he is a high profile, high potential type receiver. But I think there is a little bit of an unknown there with, what are they going to do this year? Is he going to improve on what he did last year? Because he's definitely not. Last year, he wasn't really a wide receiver one. And that's what people were picking him up as. And this year, I still think you have to at least consider him a 2. You should not pick him up thinking he's a 1. He hasn't proven it yet. And I think it's more likely if you get him in the at least third or fourth or higher, that's not too bad. But I'm definitely, again, not going to pick him as a wide receiver 1 in the first or second. He needs to prove something to him, to everyone. So he does have a wide receiver 1 ceiling, but I'm not sure he's going to get there.
Yeah, I think he
Yeah,
came in and everybody kind of expected him to come and be like Larry Fitzgerald in a way,
Mhm.
you know, and that's probably being held against him as well because you're coming in after that guy. No one's going to live up to his,
Yeah.
reputation and everything. So he probably got crapped on some of that as well. But
and
yeah,
his name. I mean, his dad
that's true.
was
Yeah,
very good in the NFL too. So I feel like he has some high expectations. Which again, he was just a rookie last year on Arizona Cardinals. He was like the 5th overall pick. We talked about this before. They were in the 5th spot for a reason. That is not a great team. The Cardinals are still not really the greatest team. They will put up some battles again here and there, but you don't see them. No one's really betting on them to win the Super Bowl. No one's really betting on them to go that deep in the playoffs. So they're going to struggle, and especially with Trey McBride there, who Marv might be the wide receiver one, but let's be honest, if we're adding Trey McBride to it, the tight end, he's definitely the wide receiver one there. The only standpoint that I could look for a positive for Marv is that the touchdowns will be there if the Arizona Cardinals can score them, because Trey McBride just seems to not want to score at all. All right, we can go ahead and we will move on. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to the next player. I will go ahead and choose my second pick. I have, I'm going to say, do not draft Jalen Waddle. I am not in on Jalen Waddle. I have never been really on Jalen Waddle besides when he got drafted. I feel like that the dude is injury prone. I mean, even if it doesn't show that he's out every game, how many times, Shane, you're a football fan. We watch the Dolphins games all the time. How many times are they saying, "Oh, Jalen Waddle's on the sideline. Oh, Jalen Waddle's back. Oh, Jalen Waddle's back on the sideline." So he might even be playing in the game, but his snap percentage is a lot lower than you think. And I mean, even just look at the last 2 years. I mean, he finished last year as the wide receiver 46 in PPR format. That's like a wide receiver 3 or 4 right there. That's not anything special. In 2023, he finished as the wide receiver 34, and we're still drafting him as the wide receiver 31. So we're still expecting it. He is declining year as years goes, and we are still drafting him like he is going to be a better pick. He is like a low end wide, like I said, he's a low end wide receiver 3, but he's going at the end of the 5th round. And I feel like there are other players around that area that I would rather have. For example, Jerry Jeudy, Calvin Ridley, Jordan Addison, Chris Godwin, Deebo Samuel, Roma Dunze. Even with Godwin's injury history, I think I would still like any of those players. And just to put in perspective of how bad Jalen Waddle has been, out of the last couple of years, out of last year, all of these players actually did better than him, was higher than him in PPR format. Jalen Tolbert, Alec Pierce, Rashad Bateman, Johnston, and Wandale Robinson all finished higher than him last year in PPR format. That just feels like a disgusting pick, and my gut is telling me just to stay away from Jalen Waddle. I'm not in on the hype.
get him, Shane. Get him.
No, I understand. I mean, I honestly put them in the exact same spot as Chris Godwin. I think they to me remind me of each other. I would personally take Jalen Waddle over Godwin. I think Godwin gets hurt easier, but I think they both do, and that's hard. But I do believe Waddle. I sort of agree with him. I mean, I think he's somewhere you shouldn't choose him before 4th or 5th round. That's in 6th round would be obviously a nice better value. Anytime you get a player with injury type issues, it's really for me. I need to draft him where I feel like I'm getting a value out of him. Because if you get too many of those people on your team, you're just taking it's a high risk. You're losing people. So, I mean, if he drops down in 6th or 7th round, 8th round, that's a good pick. Then it's somebody who has a high potential, especially in PPR leagues. He catches a lot. But again, I do understand what Zach is saying. He has to be healthy. To me personally, anymore, the injury bug has killed me some years. I'm going to shy away from that as much as possible unless I get the right value.
Okay. I just feel like Miami's like really crowded with targets, so I feel like that would hurt his target share. I do agree with the ability to not stay on the field for him. That's definitely a concern. But I mean, you've got so many weapons down there to throw to. Waddle or Hill, who are you going to go to? Hill every time. You're going to hand off to the running back. I'm going to totally mess up his name. Archain? A chain?
Chain.
A chain.
A-chain. Why can't these players have easy names, man? Let's do Smith.
A lot of them
I
don't.
even still think we're saying it wrong. I think he came out and said it's something different, like it's somehow weird. But I'm just gonna keep saying A-Chain because
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah, I
easiest way
think
to
it's
say it.
Yeah, I mean he's a top running back. Hand it off to him. You got Hill streaking down the field. You got Waddle limping off the side. I mean, don't even throw it to him.
Yeah, and a lot of people like to talk about him saying, "Oh, Jonnu Smith was his biggest threat. Jonnu Smith is gone." Which, to a standpoint, yes, that is correct. But let's not forget that they did bring in Darren Waller, and I'm not trying to say Darren Waller is going to come out and he's going to be back to what he was. But they obviously picked him up for a reason. They obviously know they have injury concerns. They obviously have somewhat of disbelief into Jalen Waddle. So, with that being said, I think that Jalen Waddle is a no go for me.
Is Waller better now? Did he get cleared or is he still hurt?
He actually got cleared today.
Did he?
I
Okay.
don't know if he practiced today. Shane, did you hear anything about that?
No, I didn't see if he did today.
Which is kind of crazy. Like, how have you been out tired and you're hurt? Dude was doing too many rap songs, too many
Well, that's probably the
YouTube
thing.
videos.
He was in the booth doing the songs and he wasn't out working out. He came out into the field, did a workout. He's
He's
like,
gassed,
I'm old.
way out of shape. All right, that is enough of Jalen Waddle. Shane, go ahead and tell us the second player you are not drafting in any league you have.
Okay. This is hard for me too because I love this player. I love him. He's done well for me in the past. I'm going to go with Joe Mixon, and I think again it's another one that he's probably going too high in some drafts right now for me. I mean, Joe Mixon has so much ability, but his ankle injury, from what I understand, is pretty serious, and he may actually miss extended time. And one of the things I know that he did so great for me in the past was he used to get a lot of goal line runs. He's he's a beast, but he's 29. This is the one I was thinking earlier was that he's 29 years old, and I don't know if he's going to have the same goal line volume as he did before, especially with the injury. I don't, and with some of the other backs they have on the team. I think he's very risky if you get him anywhere from 5, 6 down. I think he's dropped down. If you can get him later than that, then that might be a good value. But I think it's really, I would avoid him if he's going in the 5th or 6th, where I think a lot of them think they are right now.
Yeah, I've liked Mojo Mixon too in the past, just like you have said. But a thing with me, and I try to make this rule and I try to stick by this rule for fantasy football. I don't draft players who are already injured at the start of the season. So if they are
Yeah.
coming into week one and they are already having injury concerns or there's already been talks that they are not going to even play, I'm not drafting them. I don't want to deal with that headache that makes it unfun for me. I don't want to have to be trying to pick guys behind them or even picking their backup. And some people are saying, "Oh, don't be too worried about his injury. He'll come back if it's not week two, 3 or 4, whatever. He'll come back and he'll be himself." I don't think that's true. I mean, I think that's why the Texans picked up Nick Chubb, and that scares me. Like, if they maybe never picked up Nick Chubb and they were just going to rely on Pierce, maybe I'd be a little bit more in on them. But the fact that they did go ahead and get Nick Chubb, who is definitely going to see some goal line work. He's definitely supposed to be a bigger back.
Yeah.
I'm out on Joe Mixon just because of the injury factor.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say. I would do the same thing. Man's injured starting the season. Why are you going to draft somebody that's sitting on your bench immediately? Obviously,
Right.
you have your bench players, but you're not going to go out and pick up a guy that's injured, hoping for later in the season he's going to come in and get you points. That just doesn't make sense to
Yeah,
waste
especially
that pick on him.
where did you say he was going again, Shane? He's like a late fourth round pick. They said that's like
Yeah.
his ADP at the moment,
Yeah.
and then he's going to go on IR. You're going to waste a fourth round pick on IR when you could get like James Conner or even Chuba Hubbard, who's healthy at the moment. I don't think so. I don't think I'm doing that. Even if he does go later, and your league, especially if your league doesn't have an IR spot, then I don't think that Joe Mixon you shouldn't even think about drafting Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
Well,
That's even
I forgot
more.
about the IR.
Yeah, and that's even more dangerous because if somebody's like suspended the first 4 games, at least if they're healthy, they're coming back, and you can determine if that's worth the wait. But when somebody's out because they have an injury, and all it takes is one hit, and they're right back on on IR. So yeah, he's risky right now, and especially I would have to wait for a late round for him. But again, I'm like you guys. I don't like picking up somebody with an injury that people are really worried about.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we'll go ahead and move on from your second guy. Jarrell, Guy you are not drafting.
Second guy I'm not drafting, we're going to go ahead and circle back to your first pick, Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. Now, I know we've all talked about him in the past, other videos. He's aging. Numbers have dropped. I think right now he's listed for tight ends wise fantasy as number 5. There are definitely other tight ends out there that I would pick over him. Overall, I think he was like ADP or 70, like pick 70 overall. But he averaged 15.3 points last season, which I guess that's pretty good. That is pretty good if you think about it for a tight end. But my concerns are just aging, a down season compared to what he was previously, and just a Chiefs team that is not the same team as they used to be.
Yeah, they're definitely. I won't talk too long on Travis Kelce because we talked about him, the must-have. Kevin himself picked him. But I think there's other tight ends I'd prefer that I'd want. And he is a 6th-round pick, so it's not like he's that early. This is probably the latest he's gone in a while. But I'm still out on Travis Kelce just because I can get other tight ends. If around that area, I'm probably picking up wide receiver and tight ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me too. I mean, I know he can still be elite, and it really depends on how Mahomes is doing. But there's so many tight ends out there that I think uh, are more guaranteed. I know the problem with him is that people used to draft him high. He was such a great tight end that they would get him in the first and second round. Now, you can't look at him like that, and I think he seems distracted. His brother retired. Obviously his relationship, his personal things we talked about before. I don't know if he's going to be less distracted this year. And even though I know he probably wants to come out and prove something to everyone, I wouldn't draft him. Or I mean, I would grab him in a later round, but there is, depending on what the tight ends go ahead of you, but definitely I would wait personally till 4th round or later at least. And I would probably see, I would think more like 8th, to be honest, 8th and above.
Yeah, and right now he's going like the 6. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying he can't reach the 8 in any league because every league is different.
Mhm.
But to me, it's just I don't know. It just seems a little bit or too early. And if I'm being honest, I would rather even just draft like the rookie Tyler Warren because that's seen me over the last 2 years. That seems to be the trend. 2023 Sam Laporta rookie ended up the tight end 1. Last year, Brock Bowers, rookie, ended up being the tight end 1. So maybe Tyler Warren or even Colson Loveland might be just the trend to go to, and you can get them way later, So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just too early for me, for Travis Kelce. And he's just washed. He's just great career, but it's almost over, buddy. All right. We'll wrap up Travis Kelce then. I will move on, and I will talk about the third player I'm not drafting. This one, I do feel like I am going to get a little hated on, at least by any comments made. I am not drafting T. Higgins in fantasy football this year. I've always kind of been out on him, and now last year I did take a shot on him, and I had some weeks where I was very happy, and I had some weeks that I was very upset. I think his ADP for a wide receiver 2, and I'm not just talking about fantasy, I'm talking about wide receiver 2 on his team, is way too high. He's at pick 31, which is like a middle 3rd round pick. If you compare him to other players, he is going ahead a lot of wide receiver 1s on the teams. Those players would be Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, if he is a Commander, Mike Evans, Marvin Harrison Jr., DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, and even Devontae Adams, who isn't a wide receiver 1 technically on his team, but I mean, Devontae Adams has never been a wide receiver 2 to anybody else. With that being said, I don't know. There's a lot of I'm always going to draft a wide receiver 1 on another team over a player that is a wide receiver 2. They have to be really bad for me not to do that. And I know Joe Burrow is his quarterback, but just he missed even 5 games last season. I don't want a player that's injury risky. I already said that before. I like the healthier players. So the fact that he is the wide receiver 2 on his team and he has Jamar Chase on the other side of the field, and the fact that he is constantly hurt, I'm out. I'm out on T. Higgins.
Yeah, I think I saw that he hasn't even completed a full 17 game season yet. Like each season he's been out. So definitely a high injury risk there. I think the name Joe Burrow is what's raising his value. Everybody knows he's wide receiver 2. I would do the same thing. I wouldn't pick him as my wide receiver 1. I would definitely go to a different team.
Yeah, and if he was like a pick, like if he was like in a round 5 pick, he'd be a beautiful pick. Like I would love to grab T. Higgins in the 5th round, but he is a
But he's
third
not
round
going to
pick.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not going to reach that. There's just I don't see that being possible in almost any league. He's a well-known player. He's on the Cincinnati Bengals with a good offense. He's going to go too early for my taste, and I would rather go get the wide receiver one on another team. And if I'm being honest, I know Mike Evans is old, but I would much rather have Mike Evans right now than T Higgins. And just even around that area, if you just really look at it, like that area is kind of like rich in running backs too. There's like Brees Hall, James Cook, Amari Hampton, even Alvin Kamara, who finished ninth in fantasy last year. This one's a little early, but Kyron Williams or Chase Brown, if they do fall a little bit, I mean, if those running backs are there, I don't know if I even really want to draft T Higgins.
Weren't we just talking about not taking Brees Hall though?
Yeah, I was just naming the players that were hit. That wasn't my pick.
I think you agreed with him though. I think you agreed with him though.
Well, I guess it depends. Like you said, like the ADP is too low for me. I wouldn't. I mean, I think people are looking at him as, yeah, if Burrows has high volume this year, he's going to spread it around, and he could. I mean, somebody could pick him up where he's getting picked now, and maybe. But I think you're right. I mean, he has high upside when he's healthy, but he's not consistent with being healthy. Inconsistent week to week, sometimes even statistically. I like him, but I'm thinking more like a 6th or 7th round pick is where I would like to pick him up at. I don't see him at the current ADP. I would get other value at other players, so I have to agree with you on that.
It doesn't
Yeah,
matter. Jamar Chase is going over 2,000 yards this season, so he's going to be a non-factor anyway.
Oh my, hot take.
Yep.
Jamar Chase going for over 2K. You think
First
he's going
player to do it.
back-to-back receiving leader?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Man, you heard it from Jarrell. Hold him against it. All right, we'll move on from my third pick. Shane, go ahead and give us your third out of your fourth pick that you are not drafting in fantasy football this year.
All right. Well, I guess my third pick was I'm not really going to pick Trevor Lawrence. I think he's definitely too inconsistent for my liking. Last 2 seasons, he's really underperformed. He's had so many weapons, from Ridley and Kirk and Brian Thomas Jr., but he's still erratic. He plays conservative. I just think there's plenty of other quarterbacks that are more reliable, the ones that have like a higher ceiling. Definitely not going to pick him as a quarterback one on any of my leagues. He could be a backup, and I would say round 11 or higher for sure. What do you guys think?
I always see him usually. I do see people draft him early, probably because of the receivers and the talent that he does have, but he doesn't ever seem to like capitalize to me and get those points that you're looking for on a consistent basis. Now, obviously, he's got Travis Hunter coming in this year. Is he going to be able to do that and put him over the top? I would probably draft him as like a backup quarterback, but not my starting quarterback. I agree with you there.
Yeah, and that's probably why I would probably disagree, because that's where he's going. If you look at his ADP, they say he's going in the 13th round. Some leagues, that's undrafted. That means he's going waivers. You know what I mean? So I honestly don't think it's necessarily a bad pick. If he is your backup quarterback, I think it's worth taking the risk. I mean, because there is still a lot of weapons. They do have BTJ, who they drafted last year, and he looked amazing. I would like to see Trevor Lawrence and him click a little bit more, because the first half of the season, BTJ didn't click as well with Trevor Lawrence than he did with Mac Jones. They do have Travis Hunter. They just drafted him. They just picked up Dynami Brown from the Commanders. I even believe in Brenton Strange, the tight end that is supposed to be replacing Evan Ingram. I think that he's a pretty good player, and I think that he could put in some work. And then even the running back is Travis Etienne, who's definitely on a decline, but he's a receiving back. So I think right there, that's not a terrible offense to be able to put up fantasy points. And don't forget that they have the new coach with Liam Cohen. And Liam Cohen was the offensive coordinator last year for a very heavy offensive team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with with the Bake Show, Mike Evans, all that fun stuff. So I don't think I would necessarily be out on this player, especially if he is going undrafted in some fantasy leagues. I would say that he might be a good pick. But if this is maybe like a super flex league and you're looking to put him as your starter, then you're in some trouble. Move on from Trevor Lawrence. Jarrell, give us your third player. You are not drafting in fantasy football this year.
All right, so this is probably a give me player right here, because I know he's slotted to go in like the 6th, 7th round. I'm going with Chris Olave. just his history of inconsistency and not being able to stay on the field, injuries, it's just too dangerous. I think he's listed right now at like a 34, between 34 and 36 wide receiver. So he is going probably in the backup position, but I rather fill that backup position with a different receiver that I can probably count a little bit more on, especially with the quarterback situation over there in New Orleans. I don't trust any of those guys right now. I know I said rookie Tyler Shrug is going to come in and take over and win, but he's still a backup right now. So I'll wait to push that until I see him on the starter. But I would stay away from Olave.
Yeah, no, I'm heavily with you. Actually, honestly, I was probably gonna pick him if you didn't. You got to the sheet before me and you decided you picked your players. I probably would have put him on my list, to be honest. I am so out on Chris Olave, and this is from a Chris Olave believer. Just remember a few years ago, he was literally my team name, Olave Garden, and I loved him for fantasy, and he was like a late second round pick, and I loved that pick. Now he has terrible quarterback play. Dude is one concussion away from having to medically retire. And really, in 3 seasons, he's really only played 2.5 because, last year he missed a lot of the season. But he only has 5 games with over 20 points in full PPR points. So in half PPR or no PPR, he's well under. But in full PPR, he only has 5 games that he's over 20 points. And I don't think he's ever even got over 24 points or something like that. So that's a lot of lower half games for such a high risk. Like Shane said earlier on another player, high risk, low reward. I'm way out on Chris Olave. Shane, any
Yeah,
comments you want to say about that?
yeah. I mean, it's so tough with him. He's such a good receiver when he's healthy, and if Derek Carr was there, I would say, oh yeah, he could be a round 3 or 4 pick. But with their quarterback situation right now, not being known, not being consistent, I think he would have to be a later round, and it is a risk. He's one of those players again that is so close to being knocked out, for a season, for a long term. I would need to see more, him come back. It's the same as like a Tua or something like that. When he shows consistency and stays healthy, they can be very good. And he's definitely like an elite route runner. He's such an amazing receiver. But I think what you guys mentioned is there's no way I could get him too high. There's just too much risk, and unless something changes in the quarterback situation, maybe he'll have better value later, but not at draft time.
Yeah, which is sad because I remember, like you're saying, Zach, you were heavy on him. He was great in the league, and it's just sad, and it shows you what injuries can do, and you just start going downhill, and they just start piling on top of each other, and it's hard to see.
100%. All right, let's go ahead and move on from him. I will go ahead and state the last player of mine. I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you do not draft Kenneth Walker. This one's probably one of my favorite ones. I am out on Kenneth Walker, and it's so different things. ADP, I think he's losing his job. Zach Charbonnet, I think, is just the better running back. I think he looks better. I think he's done a lot more with a lot less. If you actually look at it, Kenneth Walker finished as the running back 27 last season, and Zach Charbonnet finished as the running back 25. So he actually finished ahead of him. And to be able to get Kenneth Walker, you were going to be taking him at the end of the 4th, maybe the beginning of the 5th round. To get Zach Charbonnet, you were going to be getting him way later in the draft. This is going to be like a 9th, 10th round pick that you're going to be getting Charbonnet. So Charbonnet could and they've already said in training camp and they've shown it, that it's going to be a split backfield. Why would I take a running back that is 1A or 1B or whatever at the 4th round when I can get the guy that I already believe is better way later in the draft, 5 rounds later? I don't think it makes any sense to be able to draft Kenneth Walker that early, especially with the running backs around him. Just to look around here, Chuba Hubbard, James Conner, already mentioned earlier. Even rookies like Trevion Henderson, who's looked explosive in the preseason, and RJ Harvey, who is so slated to have a good season with the Broncos. I mean, probably in the best situation a rookie could be in this season. So I don't know. I think a lot of people are in on a running back that hasn't really shown much in the last few years. When he is obviously about to get replaced by a younger, better player.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was looking too. It looks like he's even listed above David Montgomery, because David Montgomery is listed as like 21. That's insane.
Yeah, which again, that's to me that's just crazy. It just like because even then you could make the argument, oh, David Montgomery is the running back two on that team. Kenneth Walker could very well be the running back two on his team. What are we talking about? So I don't know, and I mean it's just so obvious that Charbonnet is the better back. I mean, even if you just their yards per carry are pretty similar, 3.75 for Walker, 4.2 for Charbonnet. But even Charbonnet, you could say, oh, Walker is a receiving back. He's not even a workhorse. Charbonnet has like the same receiving numbers as he does, so he can also catch the ball. Why am I going to play a player that is bad with the run game, decent with the pass game, when I have a player that is good at both? That doesn't make sense. So I'm out on Walker. I would rather. Maybe this is just not even. Maybe this is not even a saying. Do not draft Walker. Maybe this is a video of saying draft Charbonnet. But I'm out on Walker totally.
Yeah, that I
What are your
think,
thoughts, man?
um, I think the choice. I mean, when you look at him, people are talking about drafting him in the fifth or sixth round, and that's really to me is only a lock if they have said, "Hey, he's going to be running back one." And from everything I've seen, this coaching staff's going to use a rotation. He's not guaranteed to be a one. He, like you said, he very easily can be the running back two on the team. I think he's in stiff competition. I do think that if you can get him in a later round, then yeah. But if he's going in the fifth or sixth round, I wouldn't get him. Like you mentioned, there's too many others that I would choose before him.
100%. Even just like with the injury concerns, like Charbonnet has proved that he's healthier and he turns over even the ball less. I mean, even Walker had two fumbles last year. Charbonnet hasn't even turned over the ball, and Charbonnet has one more touchdown than the guy. It's so I don't see why people are. It's so clear and obvious that Charbonnet is more and more every single year taking that job, and everyone still is on Walker. And I think that's one of the dumb things to do. Stay away from Walker. Draft Charbonnet later. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll move on for my last pick. That would be it for me. Shane, go ahead and give us your last pick that you are automatically not drafting in every single one of your leagues.
Well, it goes with the Bucks, Rashad White. For me, it's disappointing because a couple years ago he was the man, but drafting Bucky Irving and he's just really taken over. And it's funny, White just he hasn't looked explosive anymore, and he just really his yards per run and stuff are just so low. He's helped his numbers a little bit by catching some passes and stuff, but he's just not there. And then people want to get him as a running back one or a running back two, like in rounds 3 and 4. That's just too low for me. He's just not there anymore. So, it has to be a later round for him. I think Bucky Irving is the running back. I think he's going to fade. I think, and I know some people hoping he's going to step up this year, and but I do not see a committee type of running over there in Tampa Bay. So I would not draft White, especially where he's going. If everyone starts thinking the same way and get him later, yeah, but no, not where he's going right now.
Yeah, White to me, it just goes back to what I said earlier. I'm not drafting players who are already injured. He's already banged up. There have already even been discussing that he might not even play week one now. Another Bucks player that is
Yeah,
in risk of not playing week one. So with that being said, I'm already all out because of that. But if for some reason he was healthy and he was here, one name, Bucky Irvin. He's clearly the running back one there, and he just does so much better. Even to argue that Rachaad White gets all his work in the receiving game, Bucky Irvin only had one less receiving yard than him on fewer receptions.
yeah,
So, and it's really hard to want to say, oh, Rachaad White's going to get all his points in the receiving game when I'm watching all these training camps and even in the preseason of Bucky Irvin catching these nice will routes for deep passes, catching touchdowns. So why
yeah.
would I want to be on a receiving backup receiving back when their starter is already doing that for them? So I'm with you, Shane, on that one. I'm totally out on Rachaad White. Jarrell, any comments?
No, I'm with both of you. I mean, I do believe they'll probably eventually, share touches just like they did last year, but I don't see that there's any concern on him taking over the position or even impacting Bucky Irvin's points, and he's clearly number one and the way to go.
Yeah,
And
100%.
there's other backup running backs that you should go for over him because he's.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Again, Charbonnet. I'd rather have Charbonnet than Rachaad White or Braylon Allen. All right, we'll go ahead and that's wrapping up for Shane. That was his last do not draft. Jarrell has a very interesting one for us here for the very last one. He actually had this player last week on our must have. If you haven't looked at that YouTube video, make sure you go check it out. He had this player listed as his must have. Now he has submitted it as a do not draft as well. Jarrell, explain yourself of what player you have chosen.
I did, and I purposely saved it for last. And I know I'm going to catch some heat on this, but my do not draft or stay away from is Josh Allen. Now, the reason why, and everybody's going to freak out, is like, oh no, he's listed as QB2, going early third round. I think like third round, first pick is what they said. Great quarterback. I'm not arguing that. It's not even that reason at all. I think he's going to do awesome in fantasy. He's going to get you the points and this and that. But to me, I think his price is too high. To me, I want to go for a high valued running back or wide receiver while those are available and wait to get a quarterback later that, sure, he may score 5, 6 less points a game than Allen, or maybe a little bit more, say 10. But there's going to be those games that they do that. But you get those wide receivers that everybody is trying to get earlier in the game, they're going to get you the longevity. They're going to get you the points they need. They're the ones that you're going to be more worried about on bye weeks, trying to pop in and out of the positions so you stay getting those higher points. That's the sole reason why I say stay away from them, is just because I feel that you can get a quality quarterback later in the draft that will still get you the points that you need. Go for those higher valued wide receivers and running backs or even tight ends first.
Gotcha. And you just made a lot of good points. Even with a lot of the good points, what was like the main thing that made you change your mind from maybe, oh, this is my must-have fantasy player, this player I want in all my leagues, to now I don't even want him, don't draft him? What was like maybe the main thing that changed your mind?
Probably like when I found out like I was position 6 in this money league that I'm in, and I know that I'm gonna have to like focus a little bit better on who I'm drafting. And even then I started thinking about past drafts. It's like, okay, I've taken quarterbacks early that I thought, and I'm like, oh great, I could have got this running back or that wide receiver, and then that quarterback isn't doing good. But then I find out later in the board, like, I hate to say it, I'm bringing up his name, Dak Prescott. That man is always on the board late rounds. But when he's playing and he's doing good, he gets you good fantasy points. Or,
Yeah, no,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and that's a really good point. Like, not like we bash Dak Prescott all the time, and I still think as an NFL quarterback, he's maybe not the greatest because he just doesn't have the clutch genes in him. But if we're talking fantasy football, you could definitely draft Dak Prescott as even your quarterback too, and you could flex him on good weeks. Like if they verse the Giants, I want to put Dak Prescott in. They run up the scores on those bad teams. The Cowboys do it every single year, and then the Cowboys fans are like, "Oh, this is our year," because they scored 55 points on the Giants or the Browns or somebody like that. But when in reality, when they verse the good teams, they're not as well. But that's just coming back to Josh Allen being really early as an ADP, because you do have to draft him at like the end of the second, maybe at the beginning of the third. So my question with you, since you know that you were the sixth pick, so the first round you'll be sixth, second round you'll be seventh, and then therefore, since this is a 12-man PPR format, what is the latest you would be willing to take Josh Allen? Like, what round would it have to come to for you to feel comfortable enough to be able to draft him?
Honestly, in our league, or in the money league, or I would probably have to take him second if I wanted to get him. In my opinion, I would have to take him with my second pick, possibly even the first pick, because knowing who we have, everybody that everybody's going to want is going to be gone 1 through 5, and then 7 through 12. By the time it gets back around to me, he'll already probably be gone. He'll probably be gone, and Lamar will probably be gone. So then at that point, then you got to shift your strategy and be like, okay, well, I need to focus on this. I'll get one of those. I would even go for Aaron Rodgers late. I think he's going to do great in Steelers.
Another undrafted. He's like going undrafted in some leagues where he's not even getting picked up in fantasy. And I do agree. I think that he can put up good points. I mean, why not?
Or even Tua.
The crappier teams.
I'd probably take Tua. I know Shane's taken Tua before, and Tua's gotten him great points when he's healthy and playing in the games. So those quarterbacks that people are going to overlook, take them late, man. Use the advantage of them going late and still getting good points.
Yeah, 100%. Any of those players that are going to have bad matchups, or just you want to flex, that's perfectly fine. That's why I even said earlier I'm not even out on Trevor Lawrence, just because he's going undrafted. You might not even have to be. You could probably pick him up maybe even week 1, week 2, depending on how the year goes. If you really wanted to. So any of these guys that you could flex, that's just how football is. Sometimes you just flex the players depending on good matchups. I mean, I'm not out on it. Shane, do you have any comments on Josh Allen? And what's the latest you would draft Josh Allen, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, he's obviously last year was, the number 2 fantasy quarterback behind Jackson. And I can understand the hype and excitement for him. Um, to answer your question before I say anything else is I would personally not want to pick him up before third or fourth round. I wouldn't go for 1 or 2. But saying that, I'm not big on the quarterbacks early anyways, because when you really look at some of the numbers on it, there's a much bigger difference in a drop when you're talking about running backs, for example. When you look at quarterbacks like last year, the difference between a quarterback 1 and a quarterback 6 was about 4.3 points weekly. And between a quarterback 1 and quarterback 12 was about 6.8 points difference per week. But when you look at the running, that's about a 5-7 point drop weekly difference. But when you look at running backs and receivers, there's no, in that same range, it's 10 to 15 points difference when you pick the same rounds. So for me, there's much more value in the running backs and receivers, especially early on, in the difference that they drop so quickly. And from what you guys mentioned, you can get somebody else. There's so many other quarterbacks that put up points, that at least 12 of them that put up consistent, that would be close enough for me to wait. And strategy wise, I'd rather get some of the other top running backs, receivers, especially under a PPR league. And you only get one quarterback, so the difference is not that much. If I can wait 2, 3, 4 rounds and only lose 4 or 5 points per week, I'm going to go for that when I can get 10 or 15 on a running back or receiver.
Yeah, and even just to look at it in my perspective and my strategy, because I agree, I'm probably the fourth is probably the latest I would take him, and I know I'm never going to get him at the fourth round. He would
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
seriously fall to be able to get there. But that's just for any quarterback. My strategy has always been draft 1 wide receiver and draft 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds. And preferably, I'd like to take one of those stronger wide receivers in the first round and then get my running backs in the second and third. And in redrafts, I don't mind even drafting those older running backs because it's redraft. I won't have the player next year. He gets hurt. I mean, that sucks. I'll have to, pick up someone else. But if he doesn't, do as well or just has a bad season, it's not like I'm going to have to, deal with the consequences the very next season. So in redrafts, I always don't mind going running backs 1 and 2 on the second and third round. Not saying that's how it works every single time, but quarterbacks, I usually never get to the fourth round. Another thing with Josh Allen is, and Jarrell said this in another video, I have been known as a strategy to stack my quarterback in at least one of my wide receivers. I usually do it every season. You always see it. And sometimes in those positions, it could sway your picks. Like, for example, last year I had picked A.J. Brown, I think either a second round or maybe even late first. And then later, when it came back to the fourth round, I drafted Jalen Hurts instead of going maybe another wide receiver, another running back. And the reason I did that is because I had already had A.J. Brown, and I was okay with having the stack, especially with me being a little biased of an Eagles fan myself. So A.J. Brown doesn't really have a player that, like, Joe Burrow has Jamar, even maybe J.J. McCarthy for later has Justin Jefferson. Dak Prescott has CeeDee Lamb. There's not really a player I'm just like, oh, I need to get that stack with Josh Allen. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, Curtis Samuel. None of those guys have make me really want to sway my pick to be able to get, or at least even an early on pick to be able to take Josh Allen a little bit earlier than I would like. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know what you guys think. Were any of us wrong? Any players that you are in on that we said that we are out? What players did we leave off? What players that you are out that you are automatically not drafting that we did not say? And don't forget to check out our social media, guys. We'll have it here on the screen. All right, guys. Peace.